You're listening to the Baumbastic Podcast with Andrew Ellis on Inside Arkansas.
And what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Baumbastic Podcast presented by Inside Arkansas and hosted by Andrew Ellis. It is a beautiful Thursday, February 27th. The month is coming to a close, and the Razorback baseball action is just now heating up. The Hogs will take on Charlotte starting tomorrow for a 3-game series at Baum Stadium. First pitch of that opener Friday, set for 3 p.m., 2 p.m. on Saturday, and then I believe it is noon. First pitch on Sunday. We'll have you covered with all the post-game reactions, quick, immediate recaps of all the action if you're not able to get out to Baum Stadium or if you're not able to watch. But if you want, the games will be on SEC Network Plus via the ESPN app. You'll have to log in with the TV provider. But I appreciate everybody for being with me on today's show. If you missed, yesterday there was a huge basketball game. I don't know if you guys heard. Arkansas beat Texas, horns down. They swept the season series against the Longhorns. But before that, I put out an episode of the Baumbastic Podcast, basically reassessing the circle of trust for pitching and sort of seeing how the impact of Gage Wood is going to, wear out this Arkansas pitching staff. I think they're in pretty good shape. I feel pretty confident about all the options they have stepping up and how the, kind of domino effect works. You're going to have a different guy in Landon Beidelshe's rejoining the starting rotation. But I also talked about a lot of the bullpen guys and certain pieces who are going to have to step up. Arkansas's got no shortage of talented options, so I think they're going to be in good shape. But if you missed that episode, check that out. That came out yesterday. And today we're going to be focusing a little bit more on the lineup and sort of a reassessment of where things are at with the Razorback lineup, what lineups I expect DVH and co to go with this weekend, and sort of, I guess, how they match up with Charlotte. Though really, we're going to focus a lot more on the Arkansas side and not the Charlotte side. But before we get into all that, of course, I've got to tell you guys about our friends over at Alumni Hall. If you remember to go check them out at 3417 North College Avenue in Fayetteville, right by the Whole Foods, right by the Chipotle. If you're in town for baseball this weekend, which you should be, because it's going to be some seemingly pretty good weather. Fingers crossed, knock on wood. But seems like there's going to be some decent weather at Baum Stadium this weekend. I'm looking forward to getting out there. Definitely Friday and Saturday, and who knows, I'll probably make it out there Sunday as well. Although who knows if there are outcries, maybe we will do a watch party Sunday. I haven't said anything about that. Haven't necessarily made plans to do it yet. But if you guys want, I'm starting to rethink my method on doing midweek games, because I feel like those are the games that probably nobody's going to be watching. No one's really going to be tapped in with. Those are the games you need the video recap, whereas the weekend games you might actually want to watch along with me as you get home from church on Sunday. So maybe we will do that Sunday. Not official, but I'm just thinking about that. Let's get back to Alumni Hall, because they are the best ultimate Razorback shopping experience. Again, you can check them out at 3417 North College Avenue, their store in Fayetteville. You will not be disappointed. We, by the way, will be there, the Inside Arkansas Live crew, next Friday. I can't remember that exact date. Is it March 7th, 8th, something like that? We will be doing our live Inside Arkansas Live show there the day before Arkansas plays Mississippi State in basketball. So if you're coming in town for that game, you should definitely go to Alumni Hall to get your merch, to get dapped up for, get your best dressed clothes on for the game, whether that's baseball or basketball. Go check those guys out at Alumni Hall. And if you can't make it to the store, if you're not in the area, this website right here, insidearkansas.com/alumni hall, will take you right to their online store. You will not be disappointed. The ultimate Razorback shopping experience. So let's talk about this Arkansas Razorback lineup.
Get that freaking gorilla going.
Sorry, that was Nate Thompson. He likes to interrupt me every now and then. He's all about getting that gorilla going, getting that gorilla ball in action. But again, so this Razorback lineup, we're not super sold yet on exactly what the definitive 1 through 9 lineup will be. There are some spots that are a little bit more secure than others, but we're still kind of in that mode where we're basically seeing a different lineup every game, and it's not drastic top to bottom changes, but we kind of see the vision of where this thing is heading a little bit. There are still some guys Arkansas needs to, quote unquote, get going. Nolan Souza is kind of the one that everyone's waiting on. I'm certainly waiting on. We'll see how many starts he gets this weekend, because I think at this point, that is kind of very much in question. And of course, he sat 2 games opening weekend, sat 1 game last weekend. And so we'll see how many opportunities they give him at the plate to kind of work out of his slump. But I kind of want to just pull up what I expect the lineup to be on Friday night when Arkansas opens this series, as in tomorrow at 3 p.m. And then we're just going to kind of work from there. We'll talk about each individual piece and sort of how we feel about the position, how that guy is hitting. And then, of course, I've got a couple other lineup combinations. These are not before I get into this, these are not like my thoughts of like, hey, this is what Arkansas should do, or this is the lineup I think is best. Honestly, I'm going to show you three. They all are kind of the same ilk, but have a few differences here and there. I'm more just going to kind of talk about the options that I assume the coaching staff is thinking through as well, and some of the options we might see this weekend. And again, we'll kind of go through position by position. And as I always say when I do these things, it's not as much about the order. It's more just kind of who's in there and how those pieces line up. Because if you start this guy in right field, then you got to start this guy somewhere else, or this guy's starting at first base, then you got to move him around. And so really it's all about kind of who's in the lineup of the 1 through 9, and we can kind of argue positionally through there. But let's start at the top. This lineup right here, again, this is not my opinion. I guess it kind of is, because it's my guess as to what Arkansas's lineup is going to look like Friday when they open the series. Just gut feeling. I don't know this to be sure, but this is kind of just the direction I think they're going. Not even necessarily the direction I think they should, but this is what I would expect the lineup to look like when Arkansas opens a series tomorrow against Charlotte. So you've got Charles Davalon there at the top. Hasn't been the best possible start to the season for him. He's hitting 258, has a couple doubles, has stolen a base, worked 5 walks, and he's only struck out twice, which I feel like is an encouraging and good sign. He's also been hit by 1 pitch. So you could argue he's had some bad luck at the plate. He went 2 for 5 in Arkansas's game to wrap up the Arlington trip against Michigan. Felt like that might get him going a little bit. Now that he's not playing center field, might have his spot a little bit more up for grabs than maybe we thought, but ultimately he's hit leadoff every game. I ultimately expect him to be there. Fayetteville Fly I have batting second, playing shortstop. Of course, no real debate there about whether or not he needs to be in the lineup. He's hitting 393 so far. Leads Arkansas with 11 hits. Is tied for the team lead with his brother with 3 home runs. Has driven in 7 runs. Has scored 8. Also has a double. Also has a stolen base. He's another guy that has more walks than strikeouts so far this year. And in fact, free passes. He's got 9 free passes to just 4 strikeouts, which is very encouraging. I'm sure that will change a little bit, but some good signs early on for Fayetteville Fly. Right behind him, of course, I've got Brent Iredale. Kind of loaded all of Arkansas's big righties in the lineup all together there in the middle with Iredale. Brent Iredale, of course, hitting 400, leading the Razorbacks with 10 RBI. He's 10 for 25. He's scored 9 runs, has 2 home runs, 2 doubles. Another guy that has more walks than strikeouts. He's got 8 walks, 3 hit by pitches, and just 4 strikeouts. We like what we've been seeing from Brent Iredale. And, of course, Kahio Eloy, who is, as of right now, leading the team in hitting. He's 9 for 16 on the year, good for a .563 average. Of his 9 hits, 3 have gone over the fence for a home run, and 3 have been doubles, and then 3 singles. So he's spreading it all around. He's hitting all over the ballpark. He's got 4 walks to just 5 strikeouts. So actually pretty encouraging for a guy in Kahio Eloy, who is a little bit streaky there. So you got Davalon, Eloy, Iredale, Eloy. And then the 5th spot, I did a little bit of a cop-out where I have Diggs/Maxwell, that being Kendall Diggs and Logan Maxwell. The reason I put a slash there is because this spot doesn't really impact any other in the lineup. It's basically just who you want to start. Of course, we've seen Logan Maxwell at DH. I'm hoping that they just roll with Kahio Eloy there. I feel like he's earned his way into the everyday lineup, and until further notice, it seems like that's going to have to be at DH. And so you guys can kind of take your pick on who they're going to go with, Diggs or Maxwell. I imagine both guys will get at least 1 start this weekend. Really, probably both guys probably will get at least 2 starts, honestly. They're both hitting 235. They're both 4 for 17. Diggs has 2 doubles. Maxwell has 2 RBI. Maxwell's drawn a few more walks. There's not a ton of separation between these guys. Defensively, I wouldn't say either is like a huge upgrade over the other, though I'd probably give the nod to Diggs if I were going just from a defense standpoint. But I've got whoever it is there hitting 5th, although we have seen Logan Maxwell hit 3rd a few times. And then in the 6th spot, I have Rocco Pepe playing first base, which I know this is a little bit of a controversial one. Really, when you're talking about this Razorback lineup, you're basically going to have to bench 2 of between Kendall Diggs, Logan Maxwell, of course, you're going to have to bench one of them most likely if you're going to have Kahio Aloy at DH, which I think we all agree he should be there. And then you're going to have to bench one of Pepe, Souza, or Kojal at any given moment. So if you're going with Rocco Pepe at first base, that means you're going Kojal or Souza at second base, and there's an odd man out there. If you're going Souza at second base, that means Kojal likely moves over to first base, which means Rocco Pepe's spot is in question. And so ultimately, when you're just looking at this Razorback lineup, they're going to have to bench somebody. And for me personally, I think you guys probably all agree. Nolan Souza being 1 for 17 on the young season makes his spot very much in question. I still have not wavered on Nolan Souza. Like I have a lot of faith in his upside and what he can bring to the table. And we've seen kind of what impact he can have in spurts last season and throughout the offseason. That's a guy that I feel like Arkansas will still need to get going. But to start the weekend, I do think they are going to roll with Cam Kojal, the left-handed hitting second baseman there. I have him in the 7th spot. And I think if Kojal's at second base, it kind of clears the way for Rocco Pepe, who had a couple base hits and drove in 3 runs the other day. Pepe is down just 3 for 16 on the year, hitting 188. But he's had a little bit of tough luck. He's only struck out twice, whereas Souza struck out 10 times. A little bit tougher to do the tough luck situation when you have 10 strikeouts and 17 at-bats. Pepe's another guy who has 2 walks, 3 hit by pitches, and 2 strikeouts. So he's, again, if you were going to make a case he's been unlucky, it's there kind of statistically. Again, I have Kojal there in the 7th spot. He's been swinging it pretty well. He is hitting 278 on the year. That's 5 for 18. He's got 3 doubles. And I feel like he's another guy that he's only struck out 3 times this year. I feel like he's also just consistently been hitting the ball hard. And so I feel like he's definitely earned his way into the everyday lineup, at least to start the weekend. And we'll see where they go from there. And then in the catcher spot, of course, I have Ryder Helfrich, who, I know not necessarily a fan favorite yet so far, although I'd argue he probably should be. He's hitting 250 on the year, got his first home run out of the way, also has a triple, also has a double, has struck out 8 times, which is the 2nd most on the team behind Souza, but he's also drawn 5 walks and gotten hit by a pitch. So overall, I mean, Ryder Helfrich's OPS is sitting at a crisp 957. Because he's had some power, he's drawn some walks, he's scored 4 runs, driven in 6. I mean, that's honestly pretty good production from your catcher. Of course, we'll see how that fluctuates throughout the year if he's able to hold that. But honestly, so far, like I've seen nothing that would change my mind about Ryder Helfrich. I know we're all fans of Zane Becker here, but I think right now, Ryder Helfrich has a firm grasp on that everyday catching spot. Though I do think we will see Becker get a start this weekend. We will touch on him in a little bit. And then Justin Thomas there in center field. They made that move last Friday. It seems like that's one that's worked out. Thomas off to a really good start of the year. He is hitting an even 300. He's 6 for 20. He scored 7 runs, which I believe are the 3rd most on the team. He's driven in 2 runs, has a couple doubles, has drawn 9 walks, which does lead the team. Also been hit by a pitch. Has struck out 6 times, and that's a number to kind of keep an eye on. He's also 2 for 4 on stolen base attempts, so he's kind of done a little bit of everything. I feel like he's Arkansas's best defensive outfielder. I feel like definitely in center field, he's just a good athlete. I feel like that is a good move for him to move him to center field. I kind of like that there. So that's, again, you just saw it. That's kind of the order I expect, or kind of at least the positions, how I think they're going to go out when Arkansas opens the series Friday. I'll pop it up there one more time. You got Davalon 1, Aloy 2, Iredale 3, Aloy 4, Diggs/Maxwell there in the 5 hole, Pepe, Kojal, Helfrich, Thomas. Again, not like super controversial. I'm not like trying to be groundbreaking here. It's just kind of reading the tea leaves, seeing how things have been going. That seems to be the consensus, like what you guys probably want the everyday lineup to look like. Although the 3rd lineup I'm going to show you probably looks more like what the common fan wants the lineup to look like. By the way, I mentioned Charlotte pitching. They're starting 3 righties on the bump, which, is notable. Ultimately, like I think you should be just going into these series, playing the guys you want to play and not worrying about the opponent as much, especially when it's Charlotte, a team that you swept a couple years ago. But I do think that's worth noting, mostly because Kahio Aloy has only started 4 games this year. And the reason he's only started 4, they almost always only start him against lefties. You faced a lefty on Tuesday. I think he's maybe only started one game against a righty. Of course, he had his big swing of the weekend, the 2-run double that won Arkansas the TCU game. That happened to come against a righty. I feel like Kahio Aloy, just what he's done early in the season, like I said, hitting 562 or 563, leading the team in home runs. Like, I feel like he's done enough to kind of earn his way in there every day, regardless of who's on the mound. But it is worth noting that they are throwing 3 righties. And so I think that is going to be tempting to have one of either Diggs or or Logan Maxwell in there at that DH spot, or even Cam Kojal, or even Nolan Souza if Arkansas does go that route. If they want to get one of those guys an extra at bat, I actually wouldn't hate the idea of getting Souza a DH spot if you just do want to go that direction. Ultimately, to me, I honestly think Aloy should probably get all 3 starts at DH this weekend. I think until he cools off, you've just got to see how long this hot streak, how long this bender can last. But I did want to show a lineup that would basically account for that and would obviously account for Nolan Souza, who I think you need to give at least one start to this weekend. You can't just completely go away from Nolan Souza. I know some of you probably feel differently. That's my opinion based on kind of the talent he has, the trajectory he was on coming into the season, and the way he was swinging the bat before the season started. Of course, what you do in the season matters, but I just wouldn't want to give up on that much talent, that much potential production also. I mean, because he's a guy, when he gets hot, I mean, we see how hot Kahio Aloy is. Nolan Souza is a guy that can get that kind of hot. Not saying he's going to do that necessarily, but I think you got to continue to kind of develop him, give him starts here and there, definitely on midweeks, but I think he's going to get at least one start this weekend. So if you're kind of going off of that, this is how that lineup could look. Davlon back out there in the leadoff spot, hitting first and batting or in playing left field. Vahiva Aloy playing shortstop, of course, no debate there. Logan Maxwell moves into that 3 spot in the DH spot, kind of breaking up the 2 power bat righties that Arkansas has in Vahiva Aloy and Brent Iredale. This is something that we've seen them do a lot. You can probably move any lefty into that spot, but I do kind of like the left with Davlon at the top, right Aloy, left Maxwell, right Iredale, left Kendall Diggs, batting 5th here. And then behind him, going right back to the righty with Ryder Helfrich catching. And then Cam Kojal playing first base, another left-handed bat. And again, Charlotte is going to have 3 right-handed pitchers, which makes it kind of easy to double up and throw some of these lefties in there. And really, if Arkansas wanted to, we did this early before the season, there's a lineup Arkansas could go to that really just has a ton of lefties, whether that's like Reese Robinette at first base, Cam Kojal, like what you could go, or Reese Robinette at DH, Diggs in right field, Maxwell in left field. Like there's a lot Arkansas could do if they wanted to just get lefties in the ball game. But in this one, you don't have a left-handed hitting catcher until Cam Kojal allegedly might be making that switch. That was, or at least something that's what DVH alluded to. So getting back on track here a little bit, I've got Ryder Helfrich in the 6th spot at catcher, Cam Kojal playing first base, moving over from second base, which has Nolan Souza hitting 8th behind him, playing second base, and of course, Justin Thomas in center field. Again, I don't know. We can kind of argue about which one of these 2 lineups I've shown you so far are better, but I think we can probably all agree, just based on the way it's gone so far, these 2 lineups, or at least some combination of them, is kind of the 2 schools of thought, like the 2 ways you could go. Like I said, you basically have to bench one of Souza, or like if you're going to have Kahio Aloy at DH, you're going to have to bench one of Maxwell and Diggs, and you're going to have to bench one of Souza or Pepe. And in this lineup, with Kahio out, you're able to get Maxwell in there, but you still have to bench one of Souza or Pepe. And I think if Souza is going to get a start this weekend, this is the lineup that kind of makes the most sense. And now this last lineup here is really just more of a fun one. I do think Zane Becker is going to get a start at some point behind the plate. I was a little surprised he didn't get the start on Tuesday. But it seemed like they wanted to get Ryder Helfrich's back going, and hopefully they did that with his home run there. But this 3rd lineup is kind of the wild card. I don't know if this is necessarily as realistic, but we got a little bit weird here. So taking Davlon out of the lineup and moving Justin Thomas up to the leadoff spot, have him playing center field, of course. You got Vahiva Aloy staying there in the 2-hole playing shortstop. Logan Maxwell batting 3rd and going to left field. With Davlon out of the lineup. And this is a way to have Maxwell and Diggs in the lineup and keep Kahio Aloy in there at the 6th spot at DH. So I've got Maxwell at 3rd, Brent Iredale playing 3rd, batting 4th, Kendall Diggs batting 5th and playing right field, Kahio Aloy batting 6th and DHing, and then Cam Kojal in the 7th spot playing second base, Zane Becker getting the nod behind home plate, batting 8th. You could have him there at catcher, and then Rocco Pepe playing first base in the 9 hole. And again, you've seen the other combinations. You can kind of move a guy around here. They're like, maybe you do Souza at second and Kojal at first, and then bench Rocco Pepe. Maybe you do Logan Maxwell at DH or whatever you want to do. You can kind of alter it however you want. But I wanted to account for a lineup that had Zane Becker in there because I do think that's a possibility. And Justin Thomas and Charles Davalon have started every single game. Now they made the switch from center to left. Like they kind of did that shake up there, but I believe both guys have started and played in every game. Maybe that continues forever, but I feel like if you're giving all these other guys days off, you're benching Kendall Diggs here and there, you're benching Logan Maxwell here and there, you're benching Rocco Pepe here and there, you're benching Nolan Souza. Like I just have a hard time believing that two guys are just going to stay in the lineup completely, especially someone like Davalon who's playing pretty well, but I wouldn't say he's hitting so well that it's kind of hard to take him out of the lineup. Whereas Justin Thomas hitting 300, giving Arkansas a nice little spark. Until he cools off, he might not come out of the lineup. But I do think there's potential to just, if you're trying to get all these guys playing time, you've got all these mouths to feed to keep everyone happy. I think there's ways to do it. And so I wouldn't rule out Charles Davalon, now that he's not playing center field, getting a day off, whether it's this weekend or Tuesday, whenever. It's going to be fascinating. And ultimately, so I think between these 3 lineups that I just showed you, I believe there are 12 people vying for 9 spots. And you could really even make an argument for some more guys. I mean, we saw Gabe Frazier get a start this past weekend. We've seen Carson Bowles get starts on the weekend. Like, there's really a couple more guys that you could add to this list. We've also seen Big Country get some at-bats. He played, I believe, in the Tuesday game. We'll see if he gets a nod. I think he struck out in his one at-bat. But again, like, so you could really make a case for, like, and plenty of people do make cases for Reese Robinette. You could really make the case for up to like 15 different guys getting starts. But ultimately, these 12 that I showed you here are kind of who I think they're going to go with this weekend, but it's always subject to change. And we're going to continue to monitor sort of how the lineup is going to shake out and how we feel about each spot. But that's all I got for you today on today's little bit shortened episode of the Baumbastic Podcast. I'm going to do right after this. I'm going to really, when I get done, when this goes out, I'm going to do a lot of research on Charlotte and really just their entire lineup. And, they seem like an okay team. Like, they seem okay. And so I don't know how many of you are like dying to get a deep dive on them, but I'm going to do all my research and go through the lineup and look at matchups and stuff and see if anything really catches my attention. So be on the lookout. There might be a bonus episode of the Baumbastic Podcast coming out before tomorrow's game. But also, I also understand, like, it's basketball season still. There's probably not a ton of people who are like dying to find out about the 49ers. And like I said earlier, I really do, like, I'm not saying this just as a cop out. I really do think this weekend is a lot more about Arkansas and what they can get going and what pieces they have that step up to the plate, more so than it is how they match up with Charlotte, a team they should have plenty of firepower to beat. And like I said, they're starting 3 righties on the bump. None of them necessarily are the type of arms, like none of their 3 weekend starters. None of them are like guys that I would really need to give you guys a huge heads up about. You've got a JUCO transfer in there. You've got a guy who transferred from, I believe, the D2 level in there. And then you got a guy who transferred from Georgia, didn't throw a ton at Georgia, and now he's a Saturday starter at Charlotte. So that's kind of the level you're looking at. But, 3 righties. A couple of them have gotten off to pretty decent starts this year. So we'll see how it works out. But ultimately, should be a good weekend for Arkansas to flex their muscle a little bit. So appreciate you guys for being here on another edition of the Baumbastic Podcast. Again, might be coming out with one more, but if not, you will definitely see me as soon as the game ends on Friday. We'll be getting to work, putting out the recap, and I will be better than I was last weekend. So appreciate you guys for always supporting and always tapping in with the Baumbastic Podcast. It's been another brilliant edition. Let's have a beautiful Thursday.